What is funny about that is how proud Steve seems of this video. Yeah. Nobody directed this, Steve. This video is not directed.
Hello, and welcome to Maiden Voyages, a show where we pick holes in the discography of one of the world's most successful bands, Iron Maiden. Today, we're continuing our look at No Prayer for the Dying, and I can't speak for my co-host, but if I normally pick holes in Iron Maiden albums, today's going to be an excavation. But before that, let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Blev, an historian of sorts, and I am an Iron Maiden. Have I used simp?
No.
Well, I am a simp for Iron Maiden. Well, I thought, as much as I love the people who listen to this, it's a certain demographic. I'm trying to get maybe some younger people on board. Thought get down with their vocab.
Some of that Gen Z vocab.
Yeah, they need a podcast about Iron Maiden as well. So
okay. Well, I don't have any Gen Z vocab. I'm Sam, a writer of sorts, and I think Iron Maiden are lit.
Lit? Oh, nice.
I mean, that's like 8 years old in terms of slang already, but it is what it is.
Yeah, like, from my experience with young people, Iron Maiden would be bare good.
Yeah, I don't think it would be, though. I think Iron Maiden will just be dinosaur music to children.
Yeah, well, or as the young people would say, Iron Maiden are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dead. But they're wrong, stupid young people. So,
you're not our future.
I mean, I would say, in a professional capacity, I firmly believe in the young people. They are the future.
Good save.
Don't sack me.
I'll save your teaching career.
That was a flippant remark. So, we're going to start with the artwork. Usually we go straight into the tracks, but we didn't get a chance last time.
Yeah.
So, the end of an era in some ways, because this is the last studio record that Derek Riggs would design in full.
Is this the last one? I didn't realise that. I assumed he did Fear of the Dark.
No. No, that's a chap who we'll get onto called Melvin Grant.
Cool.
I was going to say Melvin Bragg.
That's the wrong Melvin.
There's only two Melvins in the world.
Well, there's also the band The Melvins.
Oh, there's the band The Melvins.
Although I don't think they're called Melvin.
No. I think that's a confusing band name. So yeah, this is. I mean, because Riggs actually, I didn't appreciate this. He does something on the Brave New World cover.
Oh, does he do the Eddie in the Sky?
I think he might actually do the Cityscape Below.
Oh,
yeah, weirdly. I'm not
even
sure.
More confusing.
Well, because Riggs, like most people in the 90s, went digital. And his digital art is it's not great. But yeah, so he never solely designs and creates a Maiden studio album again after this one.
Okay, so proper end of an era stuff then.
Yeah, and I guess this is the opportunity to explore why that might be. I know it's not his fault. It's not his fault.
It's not his fault, but this is a disappointing end to that chapter of iconic artwork.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And weirdly, we'll talk about the singles later. But
iconic Riggs artwork.
Yeah, but I think some of the artwork he does for the singles are much better than what ends up being the album cover. And we've spoken about the different versions of covers before, particularly the debut album. We weren't very nice about that 1998 or 5 reissue where they
just did a weird redraw of it.
Yeah, and again, I think they got Riggs to do it, but it's not great.
Yeah.
But here we've got two very different issues, because we've got the original with Eddie bursting out of a tomb. And again, it's the live after death concept. They've already used this idea, which I think is quite jarring to me as a band who, the artwork, Eddie was being continually reinvented.
Yeah.
And, we're on such an amazing run of form of album covers. And then, I know it's a back to basics album, but come on, guys, we could just something.
It is a much less interesting version of the live after death concept.
Yeah, don't just rehash a concept you've already done, much more, and execute it more poorly.
Yeah.
But, so we've got the original version, which has got Eddie bursting out the tomb, but there's a man holding a lantern looking over him. The man apparently has been said to bear a resemblance to Rod Smallwood.
Yeah, I read that. And looking at it, it looks nothing like Rod Smallwood.
Well,
It's just a middle-aged man.
It'd be quite an unflattering portrayal of Rod Smallwood, I'd say.
Yeah.
It's like a slightly stocky...
And is that why there's a second version without the man on it?
Well,
did Rod Smallwood take umbrage?
Well, no, I'm not sure if he took umbrage, but Rod does ask Riggs to remove him. And so Riggs digitally removes the man looking over.
Right.
But I think, we've sung Riggs's praises plenty of time as an artist.
Yeah, absolutely incredible draftsman, incredible painter, great use of colors, really cool conceptual eye, and it's just clearly, like, in terms of heavy metal, made some of the most iconic album covers of all time, which makes this one all the more disappointing.
Yeah, and what I would say is, though, despite all that, which I totally agree with, I'm not sure people are his strong point.
Yeah.
It's not a particular...
No, I agree with you.
Awkward and cartoony, and I get the feeling more than anything else, that's why Rod, for the reissue, was like, I think this would look better.
Yeah.
Do you think Rod was right, though? Do you prefer the 898 reissue?
Yes, partially because of what you say. I think you're right. Like, Riggs' strong point is not human people. And I mean, a bit of a tangent, but I've been listening to Bruce's Accident of Birth quite a lot recently, and that has a similar thing with two versions of the cover, one which features a human person in it.
Yes,
and
I know what you
the
mean.
human looks awkward and weird.
The Punch and Judy emerging from the...
Yeah, whereas the Punch puppet looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So
That's a good point, yeah.
I think Riggs's skill set is very much like the surreal and creepy side of things and fantastical, but less so realistic humans.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, humans are hard to draw.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There is one other change with the 98 reissue. Well, on the original, the tomb is left blank. And apparently, Derek Riggs left space for an inscription, but the band just never got around to doing it. And that was retrospectively added, those lines we discussed last episode, in the 98 reissue.
Yeah.
Which, again, the fact they couldn't be bothered to find something for the tomb speaks to a slightly half-arsed attitude that maybe permeates into the music on this record.
Yeah. I mean, I guess more broadly on this piece of artwork, it actually took me a while to just sort of visually understand what's happening, because it's that bird's eye view shot of a tomb and Eddie bursting out of it. As soon as you take the human figure out of it, it's actually quite hard to tell that's meant to be a tomb on the ground. It looks much more like Eddie is channeling the honey monster from Sugar Puffs and bursting through a door and just be like, hey, it's Eddie, rather than like rising from a grave. And then even in the version that has the right perspective with the man in it where you can tell it's an aerial view, it's still just quite unclear and quite hard to read.
Yeah, you're right. And I think when I first bought it, I probably didn't pay that much attention to it, but I think it took me a while to realise, oh, that's what this is.
Yeah.
So
it looks like he's smashing through a door.
Yeah.
Basically.
And also, Eddie has, we mentioned the previous incarnations of Eddie, he'd acquired all these quirks, and there were these callbacks to his, representation on previous covers, the fact he'd been lobotomized and all these things. And this time, all that is stripped away, and we just have back to basics.
It's the self-titled Iron Maiden Eddie.
Yeah. So what we're basically saying here is that neither of these covers are particularly great.
No. And yeah, like losing the lobotomy sort of metal signet thing on the top of his head, it's sort of the end of quite an iconic part of Eddie's identity.
Yeah. But also, this is, I'm being devil's advocate a bit here.
Yeah.
What Maiden presumably are going for is a return to the nasty, violent Eddie of Killers, not this cerebral Salvador Dali-esque prog Eddie of Seventh Son, and they want him to look mean and menacing. And
but then if you look at, you brought up the Live After Death cover, and you look at that again, and it is that sort of zombie-ish Eddie with long hair and stuff, but he still has the lobotomy.
Yeah.
And he still is like quite a threatening figure, and there's something quite nice about like the marrying of those two elements rather than just this sort of half-hearted throwback.
Yeah, but Yeah, no,
it feels like a lot of progression's been lost.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And well,
which,
the artwork,
is very fitting for the album in many ways.
Oddly appropriate. Yeah, what isn't appropriate, I think, is this sense of, this is a really mean, aggressive, violent Eddie.
Yeah.
Because, there are songs and Killers where you go, yeah, that makes sense. And there, I would say, are not songs on this record where that particularly makes sense.
No, sir.
As well as the artwork, maybe worth discussing as well the images of the band that appear on, the reverse and the liner notes of this album. Very...
Is it all leather jackets all the time?
Leather jackets, T-shirt, jeans, spandex gone.
Yeah.
Bright, even the tracksuits they had around on some weird time, gone. This is like back to basics. I mean, Dennis Stratton would have hated it, wouldn't he? 'Cause he hated that leather jacket. You have to go back quite a few episodes now to figure out what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If that makes no sense to you. But...
Well, whilst I totally get the logic of going for that look, again, trying to recapture that sort of early days feel and that sort of street level feel, all it ever makes me think of is like when they return to the sort of leather jacketed look is when Twisted Sister did the album Love Is For Suckers, which is probably by far their poppiest album. All their press shots, they're in leather jackets. And it's this slightly inappropriately metal image for what is ostensibly just a glam album, really. And so that's what No Prayer for the Dying's press shots makes me think of.
Do you think, though, that for all Steve Harris's chat about, we're Iron Maiden, we do what we want to do, we don't really care what the fads and trends are, is there a sense that they're beginning to feel a bit embarrassed in the context of what's going on? Like last episode, we spoke about them appearing on bills of Megadeth and Testament and Anthrax. Do you think they are... my hunch is, this is pure speculation, that they're perhaps beginning to go, is this a bit silly?
Maybe.
Are these trousers, this stage show, is this all a bit daft?
Maybe it's less so, is this a bit silly, and more just... all these younger bands are showing us up without any of the sort of frills and extra pomp that we have. Maybe we just need to strip it back and be a bit rough.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm getting at is I think Steve is certainly more aware and sensitive to what's going on around him than he often admits, is my suggestion. I don't know.
I think that's fair. I think for all of Steve Harris's positioning of Maiden existing in its own vacuum, I don't think that's ever really been true.
No.
Maybe a little bit true nowadays where they kind of can just exist in their own vacuum, but particularly late 80s, they were part of a scene, whether or not they acknowledged they were part of it. But yeah, they were influenced by what was going around them, no question.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So an underwhelming cover.
Yeah.
Sad to say.
Yeah.
Let's get on to the music. Hopefully things will improve.
Yeah.
So this is also probably the last time we're going to talk about a side A and a side B on a Maiden record.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because Fear of the Dark, it does get a vinyl release at the time, but clearly not an album made for vinyl, because it was released as a double vinyl, yada yada. It's clearly a CD album. We're at the tail end of the golden age of vinyl.
Ooh.
Yeah. Got a bit of Radio 4 then, didn't it?
Well, also, I at this point in particular, I mean, I guess it's probably already the case by the time No Prayer comes out. Lots of albums are being recorded that are too long for vinyl.
And Justice for All, good example.
Yeah, so the CD versions become the definitive versions because they actually have all the tracks.
But one thing we can say about No Prayer for the Dying, and it is short.
Mercifully.
It is. You said it, not me. It's not a long record, and it will be the last time we get a Maiden record ever that, I might need to double check how long Virtual Eleven is. That's not a particularly long album. But, so I'm pretty sure it's the last time we get
It's a digestible listen.
Yeah, like I'll give it in under 45 minutes. So, side one, track one, Tail Gunner.
So I actually really love Tail Gunner. I think Tail Gunner's a really strong track. It's quite a unique opening for a Maiden album. I know we've said that multiple times now over the last few episodes. And I think basically Maiden have sort of completely abandoned their original approach to opening tracks being something that kind of grabs you with full immediacy. Whereas now this is something a bit more cerebral, a little bit more thought out. I feel like this, I think part of the reason why I really like this song is the opening bass line feels like it's trying very hard to be the clairvoyant.
I was about to say that, yes. And I
along with
appreciate that.
Really nice, bright guitars, it all just feels like the clairvoyant. So I love that.
With a very Wrathchild-esque midsection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's got that really cool sort of spinning guitar riff that's kind of juxtaposed with big open chords. And the chorus itself feels quite peace of mindy to me.
Yeah.
It's just quite a cool track in general.
It is quite a strong opening, actually. Yeah, it is. It's a good, if not slightly, Iron Maiden by numbers Iron Maiden song.
Yeah, I think it's a weird choice for an opener, but I've also put in my notes that it's potentially the album's high point. So,
oh, interesting. That's an interesting thought. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Do we need 2 opening tracks about aerial warfare in World War II? We've already had Aces High about fighter pilots in the Second World War. Now we've got a song about tail gunners on bombers in the Second World War. I sort of sometimes think, guys, like, I get it, but can we maybe just, like lyrically, well, I don't even know how much point there is going into the lyrics and details in these albums, but the lyrics don't help me personally not think you're just kind of retreading ground here.
Yeah, but maybe that's deliberate, right? It's kind of reaching back to the days of historical lyrical themes rather than the concept that wasn't a concept that was Seventh Son.
Yeah, but there's just the odd line that stands out to me. Again, I'm not really sure how fruitful a task this is, exploring the lyrics and
none of this is a fruitful task.
But, you know, when Bruce goes, going to blow your guts out with my gun, I'm just like, oh, mate, come on, you're not 12. Like in your 30s.
That sounds metal.
Yeah, that sounds so metal. Anyway, he talks about bombing Dresden. I'm like, okay, tens of thousands of... Maybe I'm just too sensitive. I'm like, women and children died. It's like, I get the Nazis were bad guys, but there's a slight glee in which you're singing about a topic that is not particularly... Anyway, yeah, no, I think it's a decent enough opening track. It's certainly not the worst opening track we've had to discuss so far.
No, sir.
No, it's better than Invaders, isn't it?
Yeah, most things are.
Yeah. So, Tail Gunner, off to a decent enough start, albeit UK have sort of heard this before, but fine.
So track 2, why don't we get your thoughts first?
Holy smoke.
Holy smoke.
Holy something or other, I'll tell you that now.
Oh, dear.
I don't mind it. There are times, and indeed times I've listened to this album a lot more than I usually would in the run-up to this episode. It really annoys me. There are times I think that riff is cartoony and ridiculous. If we both play a bit of guitar. If I'd written that when I was 16, I'd have been really impressed with that riff.
I mean, that riff is very much what you would expect on a British children's TV show on a Saturday morning. It's got that vibe about it.
Or in a weird way, if that riff was like a synth line in an Aha song, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah.
Like, it would be fine.
I see you.
It's just, okay. And then the verses are, well, just, I don't know. It's just, it's Maiden, and they, annoyingly, for the next, 10 to 15 years, they increasingly like to try their hand at hard rock. You know, and I'm not talking 2 minutes to midnight here. I'm talking just straight ahead, slightly plodding hard rock. And I don't think they ever really do it particularly well. And they don't do it well here. It's lyrically, it's just daft. And I get it, they're taking aim at TV preachers, but lots of bands have done that and would go on to do that in a much better way. And
well, we've discussed outside of the podcast that there's a weird series of volumes in metal tracks
playlist waiting to be made.
Yeah, like TV evangelist preacher diss tracks, right? You've got Jesus He Knows Me by Genesis. You've got TV Crimes by Dio.
I mean, Jesus He Knows
Sabbath.
Me is by Genesis is the one, yeah.
Yeah, you've got Send Me Your Money by Suicidal Tendencies. There's loads of this stuff.
Fake Healer by Metal Church as well. If you're not listening to Fake Healer by Metal Church, that is
We'll make a playlist.
Yeah.
To accompany this episode.
Yeah. Let's do it. And also, my final thought on this, in case it's clear, I don't like Holy Smoke. The fact this was the lead single, I think it's
bizarre. A terrible choice for lead single.
And weirdly, and I'm not a prude when it comes to swearing by any means, I just find it odd Bruce swearing. And again, he sort of does it in a way, this really childish way, as if it's like, he really accentuates it, as if it's really... I sound like my mum now. But it's like really... You think it's clever, don't you, swearing? But It's like you're not Blackie Lawless, mate. Calm down. This is shocking.
I was going to ask you, is this the first Maiden track with a swear word?
I'd have to check B-sides, but studio
track, first album track.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah, because it really sticks out. There's something quite odd about hearing Bruce Dickinson say, I don't know if I have to censor that.
You said it on the podcast, everyone.
I might have to censor that. I don't know.
I think we definitely swore last episode, so I think...
Yeah, but I don't think we're meant to.
No. Says who? The man.
iTunes.
Okay. Sorry,
Spotify. But yeah, I think what's weird about this song is how silly it is. Like, from everything from that super major riff to the lyrics and the sort of, like you say, the immaturity of how they approach the lyrical topic, it's all just a bit... Yeah, it's all odd. But having said that, I've always quite enjoyed it. I think it's quite a fun little song, but terrible choice for a first single. Like, if your intention is to say, okay, we've gone back to basics and, you know, we're embracing our roots and we're actually a really serious metal band, and you lead with this, not to mention the accompanying video, you are doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. I'll say it. I mean, this is B-side material. Like, the fact this is lead.
I think that's fair.
If it was a B-side, I would be perfectly fine with it. But it's like, wow, really? This is track 2? Ugh.
I think one notable thing about this track, and it's much more noticeable on this track than Tail Gunner, but it's something that comes across a lot on the album, is Bruce's vocal delivery has changed, right?
Yes.
So we kind of touched on it in the Tattooed Millionaire episode, that he starts using this raspier voice a bit more. And I think Holy Smoke is probably the first time in Maiden where that voice kind of takes charge. All the verses are that sort of like gargling razor blade kind of throaty delivery.
Yeah.
Which is quite a change.
Well, it is, yeah. And yeah, like you said, something he definitely incorporated from Tattooed Millionaire. And a lot of people really take objection to it.
Yeah.
Really don't like it.
A lot of people took objection to Tattooed Millionaire in a way that I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah, some people, they don't like glam, Sam. They do not like glam.
Yeah, I just never thought of it as divisive.
But to be honest,
silly, yeah.
Bruce's vocal delivery is not the problem here for me.
No. He sounds good.
The song is the problem. Like, and if anything, like, that works on a track like this.
Yeah.
While you mentioned Bruce's vocal delivery, before we go on to the next song, the production of this record, the sound of this record, we talked about the way it was made. It is if you're being nice, you'd say it's a rawer sounding Maiden record, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and if you're being accurate, you'd say it's a badly produced record.
You know what?
It's not badly produced. That's me being flippant.
Yeah.
But it's a very dry sound and a bit thin and flat sound.
That's the problem, isn't it? It's like, I don't mind them, you know, Steve going on about, we wanted the live sound, we recorded quickly. That's great.
Yeah.
But you're right, it sounds flat. That's the problem. And it sounds like it was recorded quickly and nothing... Yeah, flat is the word. The guitars don't sound a bit muted and everything just sounds quite one level.
Yeah,
which doesn't do this record any favours.
Nope.
But track 3, the title track. An odd place for title track 3.
It is, yeah.
No Prayer for the Dying. And there are lots of very awkward shifts in tone in this record.
Yeah.
So we've had 2 quite silly songs to get us going.
I don't think Tail Gunner's intended to be silly.
No, okay, but like
it's meant to be serious. It's just
like
Maiden parodying themselves.
It's slightly pubescent, if that's the right word, opening. Like, and it's like it appeals to teenage boys, isn't it? It's like guns and stuff. And then Daft track 2, Holy Smoke, and now all of a sudden we have this No Prayer for the Dying, like a rumination on life and death and faith and belief.
Yeah,
and quite slow and sincere. And it's like, okay, why? Right, sure, why not? Go on, what do you make of No Prayer for the Dying as a title track?
I mean, yeah, as a title track, it is a bit shambolic, don't you think?
Wow.
Well, it's not
shambolic necessarily.
It's not a terrible song by any stretch. It's solid enough, but this is the song your album's named after, and you compare that to, say, like Power Slave or Seventh Son of the Seventh Son or Caught Somewhere in Time or Number of the Beast, or I can just keep naming Maiden songs here. Killers. You compare it to that kind of that discography of title tracks, and this just does not measure up.
No, not at all. No, when you think coming off the back of Seventh Son of Seventh Son, where we talked about that title track, I was like, wow, what a statement.
Yeah.
No Prayer for the Dying is... Here's my... By the way, I don't think it's a good song, but here's my defense of it. There are things I like about it.
There are lots of cool elements.
Yeah.
After you, though.
I like the atmospheric build-up for all the talk of back to basics. There's definitely some keyboards there.
Yep.
So they're not kind of ditching that entirely. Great build-up. Even the verses, just of those quite delicate, clean guitars.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, when it picks up the pace and it gets to that, just tell me the answer to my... I'm like, oh, great. But then it goes back. It just doesn't really have any big enough hooks to keep me interested.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it just loses its way. And for a song that's actually quite short, it feels really meandering.
It feels really long.
Yeah, it does. And it's not. It's only about 5 minutes or something, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, my notes, I kind of touch on quite similar things to you. I quite like some of the guitar leads it goes into and how they're sort of laid on this bed of quite cool little synth parts. And some of that gives me a sort of post 1999 Maiden vibe.
Yeah.
There's something
right.
a little bit
Yeah.
Brave New Worldy about this, even though I only know half that album. But yeah, I think the fundamental issue of this track, it is utterly devoid of a hook. There is nothing anchoring any of it together. And whilst having now listened to the album about 8 times, I remember some of the guitar leads unprompted. It took me a while to commit any of this song to memory.
Yeah, and it does that thing that To Tame a Land does, where it feels like it's building and going somewhere, and then you go back to where you started again.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought we were going somewhere then. You know, the climax, that's just back to the da-na-na. I was like, oh, right.
Yeah. And I quite like that. But that's
like,
the closest thing to a hook on the whole song.
Yeah, it's a kind of climax that doesn't have a crescendo, you know what I mean? It just kind of peters off. It's like, oh, right, okay. So yeah, underwhelming track 3.
Yeah.
On to track 4, Public Enema number 1.
Well, if the earlier tracks were pubescent, I don't know what this is.
Well, the weird thing is, I think the lyrics are meant to be quite serious.
They are quite serious, and then it just has this stupid title that doesn't really fit in. They use the phrase Public Enema in the song, and it just sounds really awkward. And clearly, this is one of those songs that's written after someone came up with the title.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it wasn't funny when Blink-182 had that Enema of the State album.
Yeah, but at least it made more sense coming from them.
Yes, yeah, that is the sort of silly nonsense that like Blink-182 are known for. Yeah, the title is a weird one. And the lead guitar line, and this is not disrespecting the excellent job you did doing the intro music to this podcast, but it feels like if you said to someone...
Careful now.
Come up with an Iron Maiden lead guitar part that sounds quite generically Iron Maiden, they would come up with something that sounds a bit like the intro to Public Enema number 1. It's like, yeah. Na. It's like, guys, come on, like, it's just... Like, I couldn't point to a single Maiden song where I think they've just rehashed that, but it feels just treading old ground. And again, the chorus, the verses are quite all right.
There's a cool like roaming bass line to the verses,
but that sort of fall on your knees chorus is just flat to me. Doesn't really.
Yeah, I don't know why, but actually that fall on your knees has a harmony that really bothers me. Just something.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, I just see what you mean. Yeah.
Something about the backing vocal harmony just sounds. I think it is technically all in key, but it just sounds really out of key to me, and I really hate it.
Yeah, not a great song.
No,
and we're gonna again looking at all these songs so far. It wouldn't surprise anyone that none of these have been in the live set for decades at this point.
Yeah, that's not a shock.
Most of them were dropped after the tour and never reappeared. So closing out side A, Fate's Warning. I'm curious to see what you think of Fate's Warning.
So you said the previous track kind of felt like if you asked someone to write an Iron Maiden song, what would it sound like?
Yeah.
That I feel like Fate's Warning is if you ask AI to write a Maiden song, you might end up with something like this.
Yeah.
And I've heard it again around 10 times. I listened to it this morning. not even this morning, about half an hour before we started recording this. I genuinely can't remember what any of it sounds
Really?
like. Again.
I think this is one of the better songs of this album.
I don't know.
Devil, albeit him.
Oh, okay, now I remember it.
Like, I'm totally with you of it being generic and run-of-the-mill, but I'm like, at least I think it's got a decent chorus.
That chorus is all right, and there's a nice bit where it goes proper, like, 80s hard rock with sort of big tom hits on the drums.
Yeah.
And then, like, a squealy whammy bar from, I assume, from Yannick, which is quite fun. But, yeah, that's like 10 seconds in a otherwise Maiden by Numbers track.
Yeah, but you know what? Fate's Warning, it's got a pointless clean intro that I presume is only on there just to make it last longer than 4 minutes. It's just like, do, like it's
just
doesn't
pointless.
link to the rest of the song. Like you can bin off that, and it's about a minute long. This just nothing clean intro. Once the song gets going, it is Maiden by Numbers, but like I have a good, like when I went back to this album, and it won't surprise you that I don't really go back to this album a whole lot in its entirety.
Shocking.
But Fate's Warning was the one that came on, and I totally forgot it existed. But I was like, oh yeah, this is, I'm having a good time now. Like, I'm not going to think about this too much, but this is a good time, Fate's Warning.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst track.
No, it's not. Well, which brings us on. So that's the end of side one. Also worth noting that we've not mentioned Yannick at all discussing any of these songs. I mean, I know.
Well, I just mentioned him on Fate's Warning.
You did, yeah. So,
his little Widley bit sounds great.
I mean, the new guy making his presence felt on the record.
Literally owning in this song. Like, there's a guitar solo that's just very clearly Yannick because it ends with some hilarious whammy bar stuff.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's him.
Yeah, his playing on this album's very good. And to be fair, he just, by the time he was brought into the band, he had no time to contribute.
Yeah, as you said in the last episode, they brought him in the day before recording, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, so he's literally just showing up and laying down the tracks. But yeah, I enjoy Yannick's lead guitar playing.
Yeah,
it's pleasant when it's here. So on to side 2 now, track 6 on the album, The Assassin. Better watch out, because it's track 6, The Assassin.
Yeah. Am I starting this one off?
Why not?
So I'm looking at my notes, and a lot of it just devolves into swearing. So I should caveat that in general, I try not to be too negative on this show because I genuinely love Iron Maiden. I think they're a fantastic band, and I think they've done a lot of great stuff in the world. But sometimes there are moments where I just do not understand what they were thinking. And this song, also, it's not that fun being critical. You know, it's a bit boring and a bit played out, but I have to be critical for the song. Very, very critical. Like, it has a cool bass in the intro, and then what I've written here is, and then Jesus Christ does this song fall off a cliff and hit every effing rock on the way down. Which, you know, the things I've written are like the riff and guitar lead is like nails on a blackboard. The chorus sounds like the background music of a poor quality Mega Drive game or an early Iced Earth demo, and it's daft sort of spooky riffs.
Wow, you're going to be harsher on this than I am. Go on.
Yeah. I've also described it as a Skyclad B-side, but, you know, if Skyclad sucked. But basically, it all boils down to, like, the verses are functional and fine, but the chorus is so bad.
It is the chorus.
It's just the whole recording of the chorus sounds like the band went down the pub, recorded it in the pub, a couple of beers deep.
Yeah.
And it's just so laughably unenjoyable. I really despise this song.
Okay, so I am totally on
sorry,
board
Steve.
with The Assassin. Actually, until the chorus, I think this is some of the best music we've had in this album so far.
Hard disagree.
I think the intro's great. The verses are quite different from Maiden, but really fun. It's the din-na-na. I like the call and response guitar thing. We get din-na-na.
Yeah.
So I'm not engaging with the lyrics yet, but I am just like musically, until he gets to that chorus, I'm like, this is actually really cool. And then the song just turns into sixpence as you go to better watch out. And I just burst out. I just can't, I have to stifle a chuckle. Even listening to it on the way here, when that comes in, I know it's coming. And every time I just want to giggle because there's that disconnect between the mood Maiden are trying to convey.
Yeah.
And what is actually happening, which is, this is really dark and sinister and tough. And it's like, no, guys, this is so Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that, I'm not sure what else Bruce is meant to do with the song, but him kind of, he goes for that raspy vocal, but here he really reverts to type and goes for that really warbly, 'cause I'm the assassin. It's like, oh God, no.
I mean, I'll give it that it's a memorable track, but not for the right reasons.
I mean, can you imagine Maiden bringing this back live? In a way, I'd love it. I would be so up for...
Only if they really ham it up.
Yeah. But, wow, it's just that chorus that makes me... It just kills it, because I just want to laugh. And in a weird way, I do enjoy it, but I enjoy it in totally the way Maiden did not intend for it to be enjoyed. Because I...
Yeah.
Enjoy this, like...
Ironically.
Well, yeah, essentially, in the sense that this is so daft, it's good. But that's not the way I like to enjoy my Maiden, Sam.
No, that's fair. It's serious business.
It is, yeah. And I don't know, because there's just not a hint of tongue-in-cheek about this.
Oh, absolutely not.
It is delivered
It is
so straight. Yeah. It's... guys. And it's a shame, because I think there are ideas in there that could have really been something good.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being overly harsh on it, but for some reason this song really rubs me the wrong way.
No, it's in a way, I sort of wonder, maybe if it just had a different chorus.
Yeah.
I might actually think this was a really good song. Maybe it literally comes down to, and I think it's a Steve lyric there, the better watch out. It's like, oh, you're hard.
It's very much like the kind of song you'd expect in a pantomime.
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of, I could just see some... like vagabonds on stage going, better watch out, with synchronized hand movements, sort of doing a little jig at the same time. And then like the person playing the assassin being like, I'm the assassin. It's just silly.
It really paints a picture of words, Steve Harris, doesn't he? So side 2, off to a start. And then we're on to track 7, Run Silent, Run Deep. Again, World War II film inspiration there as a classic maybe he heard Bruce Dickinson's Dive, Dive, Dive off to Tude Millionaire. I want a straight up serious submarine warfare song.
To undo the damage of semen stains.
And it's really boring.
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean, I know I've said this about a number of tracks, but this one is particularly unmemorable to me.
The one thing that makes it memorable to me is the midsection where I go, that's so close to the midsection of Perfect Strangers by Deep Purple. It's pretty much...
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've never clicked that, but you're entirely correct.
It was exactly the same midsection.
Yeah.
They've quite shamelessly lifted.
Wow.
Yeah, well, for the interests of legality, is remarkably similar
but legally distinct.
Yes, legally distinct, and no doubt coincidental, despite the fact all the guys in Iron Maiden really love Deep Purple.
And Yannick had literally come from playing in the Gilland band.
Gilland, yeah, God, as if to. And poor Yannick, he was always accused of being a Richie Blackmore clone anyway.
Oy.
But yeah, a really lackluster chorus actually.
Yeah.
Just, anything else to add?
Nah, mate.
Nah. And then again, all these flipping weird gear shifts. It's almost like no one really gave thought to this record. Here's just 10 songs we have.
Yeah.
But Adrian Smith's only writing credit on an album he's not even playing on. Track 8, Hooks in You.
This song does not fit on this album.
No.
But I love it.
Yes, yeah.
It sounds like Iron Maiden does Night Ranger.
Yeah. Yeah.
The lyrics are pretty terrible, but...
Oh, yeah. Like, again, it's like Iron Maiden in sexy mode.
Yeah.
Oh, it's BDSM.
It's very similar lyrical content and puns to Pretty Tied Up by Guns N' Roses off Use Your Illusion 2. Although this predates it, I guess.
Well, was this like a big thing in the news at this time? Like all of a sudden everyone's like, oh,
just
sexual subcultures.
Maybe, yeah. But I think this is just a really good hard rock song. The melody is great. The guitar leads are fun. It's really hooky. if you kind of ignore the lyrics, it's a properly good song, but it just doesn't fit in. One thing I was going to ask you that I wasn't sure about, is this another part of like the saga of Charlotte the Harlot? Because at one point, the lyrics mention the keys to 22.
Yes. So yeah, in a tenuous way, you're right. I think it is. And we also will, when we talk about Fear of the Dark, there's another installation of the Charlotte saga on Fear of the Dark.
Because, I mean, I wonder if the logic is, well, you know, we're going back to roots, so we need to sing about this sex worker who we've vilified multiple times.
Yeah, which again, by the time you get to 1990, and I appreciate loads of bands were still doing it, but this was, I'm guessing,
things
already
have moved on a bit.
Becoming a bit passé, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, lyrically, it's a bit of a nightmare, but that doesn't stop it being a, like I said, and actually, it like a great song. Is this Iron Maiden's most commercial track? I mean, is this really... Oh, obviously it is an Iron Maiden song, but...
Yeah,
does this really
definitely...
as an Iron Maiden song?
I mean, this fits in the same way that, say, like, Reach Out does, right? Like, I could see this song and Reach Out on the same potential fictional Maiden does hard rock album.
Yeah, but crucially, they didn't put Reach Out on an album, right? They put
Yeah.
So it's quite a thing saying, oh no, we're going to put this on an album.
It's also odd to put this on an album and not make it a single.
Well, they almost did, as we found out last episode.
Yeah.
This was almost the lead single. That would have blown Maiden's fans' minds, though, wouldn't it? Before the album came out.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm not sure, because Marillion released Season's End in 1990, and they had
with their song Hooks in You,
and that was
which is also a banger, to be fair.
Yeah, two great songs called Hooks in You.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to talk about the Marillion song now.
No.
Well, that'll be... If you ever end up getting a Halloween pod, I'm doing a Marillion podcast. That'll be it's just me talking to myself about Marillion. Great song. But
this and Tail Gunner are probably my two favourite tracks on the album.
Yeah. And isn't it weird that this is one of the best songs in this album and one of the least typically Iron Maiden songs?
Yeah. And you could say that about the next track, to be honest.
Well, yeah. And again, so track 9, what a place to put this song.
Yeah.
The penultimate song on the album. Just, what, and a single. What are you doing, Iron Maiden? But yeah,
weirdly, I could see this working as an opener.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We should say the song is Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter,
exactly.
Which we touched on at great length in the previous episode on Tattooed Millionaire.
Well, that's it. So if you want to know the Genesis story of this song,
Phil.
the prequel, if you like, go listen to that episode. But long story short, Bruce wrote this not potentially, as a solo track for the Nightmare on Elm Street 5 soundtrack. Mm-hmm. Steve Harris liked it, said, hold off on that, don't put it on your record, I want it. Bruce apparently is very flattered by this. He's kind of like, oh, great, He's still, reeling a bit from somewhere in time where he didn't get any of his songs to the record, so he's chuffed Steve likes some of the songs so much. And here it is, the second version, the Iron Maiden version.
Yeah.
What do you think about... And also, this is the only hit on this album. Not hit. This is the only classic song on this album, basically. Yeah,
this is the only one that's survived beyond this album.
Yeah, although weirdly hasn't been played live for 2 decades.
No.
So I'm not sure Maiden... I think Maiden are a bit embarrassed about it, in all honesty.
But it's also their only actual hit single, right?
Well, they're only number one,
yeah.
As we're going to discuss, yeah. I mean, they've had plenty of top 10 singles, which are their hits, aren't they, really, if you get a top 10 single?
Yeah, but this is the only number one.
Yeah, the only number one.
Pretty interesting, considering what you were saying about part of the feeling of this album is Maiden feel a bit embarrassed about being Maiden. And then for your number one single to be something as daft as Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter is kind of galling.
What I would say about Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter is I think it's the best AC/DC song that AC/DC didn't write.
Yeah, that is totally fair.
It's such even down to, I was listening to it the other day, and when it goes to that, the sort of the quiet getting loud a bit.
Yeah.
The Bring Your Daughter, fetch it. That's so... Exactly,
it's definitely got a little bit of like that thunderstruck.
Dirty deeds and they're done dirty.
Yeah.
That kind of AC/DC thing.
It's like AC/DC if the lyrics were written by Alice Cooper.
Yeah, well, I don't know, AC/DC on... Yeah, the gothic tones, but the tawdry innuendo, backdoors, references. Oh.
Have you heard Bed of Nails?
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, Alice Cooper's guilty.
80s Alice Cooper.
I always associate AC/DC as being the kings of, like, cheeky, carry on.
Yeah, I get you.
But I really like it.
Yeah, I love the song. I think it's great.
But apparently, Bruce's version in 1989, got a Golden Raspberry Award is it Golden Raspberry for the worst song of that year? I think this is, lyrics aside, it's such a perfectly crafted pop.
There were also much worse songs in 89, 90.
Oh, yeah.
So,
but yeah, no, I think and it gives you something this record has been missing, which is like, oh, thank God, a hook.
Yeah.
Something memorable.
Definitely.
Something you could sing along. And I'm not saying that's the definition of what good music is, obviously, but it's like...
But it often helps.
It helps, yeah. It helps if there's something I remember about a song after I've listened to it. And there are lots of great parts to this. Really great chorus. I mean, straight up, just say the name of the song over and over. But the crescendo build, I love the R's.
Yeah.
The guitar bit, the little creepy R's and the silly spooky vibe.
It's all fun. It all builds really well. It's got a lot of energy to it. It's probably the most energetic feeling moment of the album.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
If the rest of the album kind of feels a little bit like lethargic,
and the production almost works on this.
Yeah, like everything kind of lifts at various points in this song. And
I appreciate this is going to sound very hypocritical because I've just laid into loads of songs like The Assassin for being really daft and Holy Smoke for being really daft, and Bring a Daughter to the Slaughter is very daft, but
this feels more knowing.
Yes,
as well.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, Holy Smoke, I think, is quite knowingly silly, but The Assassin, there's not like any hint of a wry smile.
No.
Whereas here, that obviously is because the song is called Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, and it was done originally for a Freddy Krueger film, so there's no way there's not a little bit of a smile with this.
Yeah, and again, what a tonal mess this album is. Straight up The Assassin, super serious, and then Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. But yeah, thank God it's on here, because otherwise, at least you've got something to look forward to when you get to the back end of the album. Because then we go into the final track. I mean, it's such a totally forgotten Iron Maiden song.
This song is so forgettable that the first couple of times I drafted these notes, I forgot to include it.
Oh, now, so we're talking about Mother Russia, the final song. Again, we spoke about a subgenre of metal songs about evangelical TV preachers. There's another subgenre of metal songs about the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, because you've got this...
Wind of Change.
Wind of Change, obviously. I mean, that's the winner, isn't it? The one band. That's the best version of Wind of Change I've ever heard.
Oh, are you insulting the song? I love that song.
No, I love the song. No, it's a good song. Apparently, the Scorpions have changed the lyrics now.
To what?
Well, they've just removed...
Wind of Change, brackets, screw you, Russia.
Brackets, Putin's a dick. So they've taken out the reference to... What's the river they reference? Is it it's
like the Musquat.
Yeah, and like Gorky Park, they've just taken out to we follow a generic river down to a local park.
It doesn't work quite as well.
But yeah, Saxon did a song about collapse of communism. Demon, the one band, did a song called Blue Skies and Red Square. But it's
great song.
Yeah, there's a slight sense of slightly Western triumphalism, isn't there? Like,
absolutely.
We won the Cold War, and now the Russian people are free. Oh no, wait! I hope something worse doesn't happen.
The next 30 years are going to be great.
So musically, my take on Mother Russia is starts great. I love the na-na-na-na-na.
Yeah.
I like the moody intro. Again, the keyboards are back. So again, for all Steve Harris's Back to Basics live raw, there were parts of this that could be on Seventh Son.
Yeah, I see that.
And I think there's similarities with the title track of Seventh Son. But yeah, it just feels... There are some great... For me, I think there's some great musical ideas. Again, a bit like To Tame a Land, where I just go, Steve, just finish the song. Like, it's an unfinished song. It's like he's got half a song here. This is building up to be a Harris epic. as you'd expect at the end
How
of the
long is
record.
this song?
About 5 minutes long.
Because it feels like 8 minutes of nothing.
Well, this is the only Maiden album, potentially other than Killers, where I think every song comes in at under 6 minutes, or under 7, because Prodigal Son's over 6 minutes. So every song in this album comes in at under 7 minutes, which is a real anomaly in the Maiden catalogue. And yeah, Mother Russia, the daft lyrics aside, it feels like I think that there's something good in here, but it honestly sounds like you've just not been bothered to finish it.
Yeah.
And so then it kind of peaks out, and you go, oh, that's a shame. I thought this might be good. And
so that takes us to the end of the album then.
Yeah.
What are your overall thoughts?
Well, should we quickly go into the singles first? I know we've touched upon
Okay.
them.
Do that.
But the lead single that comes out a month before the album, Holy Smoke.
Weird choice.
I mean, weird choice. I'm trying to think of something nice to say. Good cover art. I like Riggs's. Are you familiar with the cover art for Holy Smoke?
I will take a look.
Oh, it's quite it's quite a cool concept, I think. Arguably better than the actual album cover.
That is a good cover.
It is, yeah. I mean, it almost should have just gone with that
For those who haven't seen it, it's Eddie standing upon a pile of burning TV sets, holding up another TV set with like an evil eye on it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It is cool. And it peaks at number 3 in the UK chart, Sam.
That's surprisingly high.
Yeah, it is. But, this is at a time where, Maiden have such a captive... in the UK in particular, they're on such a high after Seventh Son. I mean, people are just buying it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. The music video, directed by Steve Harris.
So I rewatched this video the other day, and it is no good.
The problem is with that video, it's not great. And I appreciate there will be people potentially listening and going, yeah, but they're just having a laugh. They don't take videos seriously. But the problem is they don't sound like they've taken the song seriously either. The whole thing.
No, and particularly when all the stuff they're saying around the album's releases, this is a back to basics sort of more serious approach again. So, well, you've very much not giving that vibe.
No, the vibe you're giving is we can't be asked. And there's a kind of fine line between jolly silliness and actually kind of being a bit contemptuous towards your fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Screw it, doesn't matter.
It's just some footage we did on a camcorder and we thought it was funny.
You're all going to buy this anyway because we're brilliant. So
yeah.
It's like...
Especially, so you mentioned in the last episode, there's like that sort of behind the scenes interview clip on YouTube where it's mostly Steve and Martin being
Just to interrupt you briefly, what is funny about that is how proud Steve seems of this video.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, I shot and directed it. So, no, you can't. Nobody directed this, Steve. This video is not directed.
But there is a little bit of sense of like, yeah, we were gonna shoot a proper video, but I had all this footage anyway, so we just did this because it was better. I was like,
no, it
what?
isn't. And it goes back to the ethos of we were going to go to a proper studio, but then we didn't because my house is literally next door, so
I could get up and just walk into the studio. It was great.
And it's just the whole thing is like cheapness and can't be bothered.
Yeah.
And
it's all very phoned in.
And there's they kind of rationalise it, but it's like, guys, no. And just for completer's sake, the B-sides are a cover of All in Your Mind by the band Stray.
Sure.
A generic 70s hard rock. And a cover of Kill Me Ce Soir by Golden Earring.
Terrible song name.
I mean, at least Golden Earring, I presume English isn't their first language because they're from...
Oh, really?
I think they're from Belgium or Holland. The Netherlands, I think. Are you looking up a Golden Earring from?
Yeah, Dutch.
Dutch.
Correct.
There we go. Classic Dutch hard rock band.
Classic.
Steve Harris loves Golden Earring.
Why couldn't they cover Radar Love? That'd be great.
I mean, that would be quite fun, yeah.
Yeah.
It's too obvious, Sam. Steve wants to show we all know Radar Love, but Steve's into the deep cuts of Golden Earring.
I don't care.
Yeah, like 99% of the world. Just play Radar Love.
Yeah, exactly.
10 times and leave. Sorry, Golden Earring. And then we get one more single, which is quite a while after the album's released, and of course we've already mentioned. So it's released on Christmas Eve.
That's a weird timing.
Yeah, 1990. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. And again, we've got B-sides I'm a Mover, which is a free cover. Again, very straight free cover. And Communication Breakdown. The
Zeppelin.
classic
Yeah.
Zeppelin song.
It's quite an odd cover, that. Something about Bruce's voice is almost too much.
Yeah.
And then all the guitars are just a bit too... I know I say this a lot, but like grid-based sounding. There's not enough sort of looseness.
Yeah,
for the cover. It's fun to hear them do it. It just sounds weird.
It's weird that for all these B-sides, they've gone for covers of 70s rock bands.
Yeah.
So they clearly had no other material in the tank.
No.
And yeah, they're all just very straight covers. I mean, yeah, they're fine, but they're not. I wouldn't go out of your way to seek them out if you don't already know them. But of course, the main thing about Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, it peaks at number 1.
Yeah.
A number 1 single. I believe the first heavy metal single to go number 1 in British chart history.
Wow.
Sabbath never have a number 1. Priest never have a number 1 in the UK. So I mean, quite the achievement.
Yeah.
Despite a ban by the BBC, from all accounts.
Really?
Yeah, so the BBC Radio 1 and places refused to play it because of its explicitly sexual content, I presume, and slight allusions to violence against women.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what, like, you know, we are the wokest Iron Maiden podcast on the market, but I think that's being a little bit uncharitable to the hammy, silly nature of the lyrics.
Yeah. The song has much more in common with, like I said, like Alice Cooper sort of vaudeville levels of silly violence rather than something properly troubling. If they like objected to Hooks in You, totally would have got that. This is just, it's just stupid.
Yeah, it's clearly so daft and tongue-in-cheek. It's a bit like, but it does get to number 1.
Yeah.
If we're going to be a bit cynical about it.
Oh, I love being cynical.
It seems that there was, again, I think Rod Smallwood is behind a lot of this. There was
pulling the strings.
There was a real concerted attempt to get this to number 1. So even down to when they released it, it came out at a time of year where you've already had the big Christmas number 1.
Yeah.
Which is, so there's that kind of post-Christmas, between Christmas, New Year lull.
The market's empty.
Yeah, because everyone gets their singles out for Christmas to be Christmas number 1. Get this in just before Christmas, ready for next week when there's a lull.
Yeah.
Also, and you know, Maiden are no strangers to releasing things on multiple formats.
Yeah.
But there are a huge number.
And also, who's buying singles on Christmas Day other than like a really devoted...
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you've got like a...
sorry, not Christmas Day, Christmas Eve.
Yeah, but you've got like the 3 days after Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Boxing Day to go out and get it and stuff. But so I'll try and stick it up on X. X. I've got a 7-inch of Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. And again, there's 2 different artworks as well, kind of get people buying it. So I've got the 7-inch with the Scythe Grim Reaper Eddie on it, but it's an etched 7-inch for the band's.
Oh, that's cool.
Etched on it. It is cool, but that's just one of a baffling array of different.
I really love the other artwork for the single.
Yeah,
which if the intention was kind of like to have Easter eggs and references to early Iron Maiden days, the alternative artwork for Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, where's Eddie sort of cradling some kind of Jessica Rabbit looking woman.
Quite cyberpunky. Sort
of cyberpunky, except it's all set against East London backgrounds and stuff and lots of weird creatures on the ground. I don't know. It's quite a fun piece of artwork compared to, say, the album artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the music video, I mean, classic Maiden silliness, just... Here's some live footage interspersed with black and white films, but it does the job, doesn't it? It's weirdly, I think, one of the better music videos we've had for Maiden up until this point.
I really wish...
That's not saying much, I know, but...
Yeah, and going back to that clip, that behind-the-scenes clip where they're talking about making of the album and making of the videos, I think Steve makes quite a specific point about, we did a proper video with storyboards and stuff, presumably Can I Play With Madness, and no one really got it. So we've gone back to basics kind of thing. I just kind of think they really took the wrong lesson out of the Can I Play With Madness video.
I think they took the wrong lesson out of Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Yeah, sure.
Stop.
Yeah, but I mean,
the correct lesson is, wow, this is the best album we've ever made. Let's carry on exploring these avenues, not, apparently that was all wrong. Let's do a complete U-turn.
But overall, Yeah, I just think the live performance intersected with some presumably royalty-free film clips is just dull as hell.
But a number one single, so
yeah.
So let's get on to the critical reception, then we'll kind of do our man of the match and all the usual jazz. So the critical reception of this album, as usual, despite digging, I haven't been able to find any contemporary reviews.
Yeah.
But I'm really hoping, I'm looking at you, Can I Pod with Madness, because they've done amazing stuff, getting us lots of great reviews. I'd love to read the contemporary reviews. The general perception is that they were mixed to negative.
Oh, really? Okay.
Apparently, but it's hard to see how much. It's hard to tell how much of that is retrospective, because retrospectively, this album has not been well regarded at all. And so we've gone into the various lists of Maiden albums ranked. So let's see how No Prayer for the Dying does.
But just before we go retrospectively, I guess it'll be interesting to know if some of that negative reception is contemporary as well, because as we've touched on multiple times, there's a real sea change in metal around this point and has been for the last couple of years towards the end of the 80s decade. And yeah, I mean, this album kind of feels like it's done in response to that, but has completely missed the mark.
Yeah, and you know what is really interesting is I kind of like old copies of Kerrang. Not sure if that's come up before. And I like going on eBay and buying old copies of Kerrang. I've got a copy of Kerrang from about 91 or 2. And one of the albums they're reviewing is Diamonds, The Best of Dio, a Dio compilation.
Right. Okay.
And in 92, bear in mind this music is barely a decade old.
Yeah.
The tone of the review is just, lol, Dio. Like, this is embarrassing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, in Kerrang. And you're thinking, wow. Dio was always, less than 10 years earlier, he'd been topping the polls, best frontman, best vocalist. And by the time we get to 91 or 2, whenever this issue was, I think they still gave it 3 Ks, but the tone was so withering about these great, like Holy Diver, Rainbow the Dark, best of Dio, come on.
But I think there's a few things going on there. There's the sea change we're talking about. I think there's also, we mentioned this book a lot. I'm still reading Denim and Leather by Michael Hatton. And one thing that's really clear from reading that and all the interviews with like Sounds and Kerrang journalists and so on and whatever is the tone of reviews in the 80s and 90s. It's far more acerbic and vitriol filled than it would be nowadays. Like, there's a lot more desire to champion things, sure, but also just be pretty brutal and cut things down. And so you add into that, like, Dio, we've kind of touched on before, the 80s is sort of like a crucible of development for metal music, and what is the standard changes completely. So I can imagine in the space of 5 years, Dio feeling old hat, and you add on top of that the sort of angry review style of the time. And yeah, it's a recipe for intensity.
Yeah, and yeah, going on to like that point made about reviews is a good one. But what's happened there is throughout most of the 80s and the 90s, bands needed the press more than press needed any one band.
Yeah.
And now press need the bands far more than bands need the press.
Yeah,
right?
that is absolutely true.
No one is going to dare to print a bad word. I mean, maybe a broadsheet newspaper, okay, they don't need Iron Maiden, but there's no way Metal Hammer are giving Iron Maiden a damning review, is it?
No. Which is a big problem in itself.
Well, it is a problem, isn't it? There are these untouchable bands that the press needs so badly, no one is going to say anything bad about them.
I think that's a really astute point, actually, that press nowadays is struggling so much that in order to make sure that they get coverage of the important bands who will sell copies of their magazine or get the clicks on the website, that they can't afford to offend anyone and rub anyone the wrong way. And so that means that lots of bands kind of get given not a free pass, but maybe more of a glowing reception than they might do otherwise. You also add on top of that, if just before we go into like the retrospective lists, I think there's also a thing that the time period that metal's been around, perceptions have changed, and it kind of feels like nowadays, whilst in the early 90s, something like Dio might have felt really old hat, even though it was 5 years old. Nowadays, 30, 40 years later, because metal hasn't actually moved that much in that time period, it still feels oddly relevant.
Yeah,
in a way that it really shouldn't.
Yeah,
but
no one is. You think about the debut Slipknot album is over 20 years old, but no one's going, lol, that's so passé, because metal fundamentally hasn't changed that much in the last years.
This podcast is case in point, right? Here we are in the year of our Lord and Savior 2023, and we're talking about a 50-year-old band, 40-year-old band.
Yeah, pretty much. It's funny how life pans out, isn't it?
What a band, though.
What a band. Stay tuned, everyone. So, going back to those retrospective lists.
Sorry, yes.
So, friend of the podcast, Dom Lawson. I always say that, despite the fact we've never met or spoken to him. But
I'm not sure this podcast has friends.
No. Hey, it's got some friends. And we want Dom Lawson to be one of them. Because he seems like a good egg.
Yeah.
But when in his list of the Maiden albums for Louder Sound, he put this at 17th. Which at the time of writing, that...
How many albums did they have?
At the time of writing, 17.
Okay.
So he is saying this is the worst Iron Maiden album. Stereogum put it at 17. The worst Iron Maiden album.
Yeah.
Loudwire put it at 17.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The worst Iron Maiden album. Kerrang, being the outliers they are, put it at 14. Above the Final Frontier, which I think...
Hard disagree.
Yeah, that is not okay.
That is not fair.
It's just not correct. I'm sorry. I know it's your... Well, we've come back to this thing about all opinions are subjective. Not that one. That is an incorrect opinion.
It's interesting that so many lists will put it last, though. I mean, we've kind of touched on that the next season's worth of albums we cover, the next 4, I don't really know. So I don't really know what to expect, but there's definitely a sense that this is the worst so far, but it could all change.
I would argue that, I'm not talking necessarily about the next album we're going to talk about, but I think there's still room to go down. We've not reached the bottom just yet.
Yeah.
For me. But we're approaching the bottom for sure. Basically this album is, well, you could say widely considered to be Maiden's worst album, judging by those lists. But that doesn't seem to really affect its chart performance, at least in the UK, because in the UK it goes to number 2.
Wow.
Yeah. So, not quite the number 1 that was Seven Son of Seven Son, but not far off. As usual, should we play Let's Guess What Was in the Charts that week?
Sure. I'm just terrible at this.
October 1990. What might be there?
1990.
Yeah, 90s are not a strong point for me. Some big names again, though.
Alive for a year and a half.
Someone who's already come up in previous episodes.
Spandau Ballet.
No.
That's more 80s anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So number 1 is baffling. I don't know what it is because I'm not bothered looking into it. But it's presumably a live album because it's simply called In Concert by Jose Carreras, Placido Domingo, and Luciana Pavarotti.
Oh, so opera.
Oh, are those the 3 tenors?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think so. Pavarotti kind of gives it away.
Okay, so...
That's not that baffling.
No, actually, that's not. Actually, I thought...
You uncultured swine.
These are like 3 Mediterranean, Hispanic type Italian men names, but that makes more sense. Oh dear. I regret thinking aloud.
Just keep digging.
Number 3, you've got X by NXS. Good stuff. Number 4, Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1 by George Michael.
Okay.
Did I say Maiden at number 2?
Yes, you did.
And number 5, Soul Provider by Michael Bolton.
I mean, to be fair, Soul Provider is just a cracking album title.
I've got time for Michael Bolton.
Oh, what an amazing voice.
Yeah. I won't rehash that Black Sabbath anecdote.
No. Although, on a Bolton-related note, earlier this morning, I had that Lonely Island song about Pirates of the Caribbean come into my head, where Michael Bolton keeps singing about Pirates of the Caribbean.
That is very good. Yeah.
That's a proper banger.
I mean, in some ways, Bolton's finest album.
There's someone who's not afraid to make fun of themselves.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Number 6, you've got an album called Reflection by Shadows.
Sure.
Not The Shadows, as in Cliff Richard and the Shadows, just
Just Shadows.
Shadows, whatever that is. Number 7, Sleeping with the Past by Elton John.
Okay.
Not an Elton John album I'm familiar with. Don't know what's on that one. And number 8, you've got Dr. Adamski's Musical Pharmacy by Adamski.
Amazing album
Sounds
title.
great. Number 9, you've got Boo Mania by Betty Boo.
Sure.
Number 10, you've got Ooh Las Vegas by Deacon Blue.
What was happening in music in 1990?
I don't
This
know.
is a very weird top 10.
Deacon Blue have got, I think, did they do
a famous song.
Dignity?
Maybe.
Ship called Dignity. I'm pretty sure
I
that's
know
Scottish
a
Blue.
Deacon Blue song.
Or did they do Things Can Only Get Better? Am I getting confused? Was that Deacon Blue? Sam, can you just...
I'm looking.
But usually you wouldn't go outside the top 10, but I am going to venture just to number 11, because number 11 is the Razor's Edge by AC/DC.
Yeah.
That had previously peaked at number 4, which has got
They
Thunderstruck
did.
on it.
Deacon Blue did do Dignity.
Oh, they did Dignity.
The song I know is Real Gone Kid.
Oh, I don't know, Real Con Kid.
I think
Dignity's about.
It might be one of the songs that I heard on Alan Partridge at some point.
Yeah,
like Teddy Bear or whatever it is by Roach. Like,
yes, yeah. Yeah, they are quite a Partridge-esque band, sadly.
Yeah.
Despite having a couple of great songs. But yeah, so AC/DC The Razor's Edge, also out in the same week.
Cool.
Probably the last AC/DC album.
Ever.
Well, the last. I know some people like Black Ice and some of the later ones, but
Yeah.
The Razor's Edge has a couple of legit hits on it. Yeah, so there's the charts. In America, though, so in the UK, Maiden's still pretty much untouchable, number 2 album.
Yeah.
But this only gets to number 17 on the Billboard chart. It fails to go...
Were the 16 above it other Iron Maiden albums?
no, I don't think so, Sam.
No, I was just referencing the retrospective. Swing and a miss.
So, yeah, if we spoke last episode about Maiden perhaps worrying about their stagnating popularity on Seven Son. At least with Seven Son, you could say their popularity is stagnating in the US. Now it's in proper decline.
Yeah.
Like 17 is a big old...
It's a big drop.
It's quite a big drop, yeah. When they were getting to, like, Summer in Time got to, like, number 11, and,
Yeah.
Summer in Time, pretty much was the peak of their commercial powers in America. Oddly. Well, maybe not oddly, but... Yeah. So, bringing it home now, the man of the match. I've got a really clear man of the match, so our standout Maiden person in this record.
Okay, you go first, because I have nothing.
Okay, my man of the match is undoubtedly Yannick Gers, just because I think he is the least guilty or culpable for anything that's bad about this album.
Okay,
he literally joined the band the day before they recorded it. He is totally blameless here. His playing on the record is great. None of the fault lies with Yannick.
I think I'm going to have to second that, to be honest, in that he is the least culpable
Yeah.
for whatever this album is.
So, yeah, fair play, Yannick. That's big endorsement. Your first Maiden record, in a way. So, our favourite track, our worst track, our best of the beast, our worst of the rest. I've not really thought about this.
I think my best of the beast is probably going to be Tail Gunner.
Okay.
Whilst I probably like Hooks in You a bit more, Tail Gunner feels like a proper Maiden track, and it is an uncharacteristically good opening song for an album that doesn't deserve it.
And worst of the rest?
I mean, I think it has to be The Assassin, right?
No, I could, because in a way that's...
It could be Mother Russia, but I think it has to be The Assassin. Although at least The Assassin brings me joy in its terribleness.
That's it. That's the reason I couldn't do that, because it does actually make me smile for all the wrong reasons. But
yeah.
So my best of the beast, you know what? I'm going to go very route one on this. I'm going to go Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter.
That's fair. Totally fair choice.
I think, that's actually a very daft lyric, but a good song. My worst of the rest, I might go for Run Silent, Run Deep, actually. I just think that's the ultimate snooze fest. It's just such a boring song.
It is a snooze fest.
And objectively, I think you're right. The Assassin sort of is the worst song, but it's so silly it actually makes me smile.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So
I can see it.
It brings me more joy than Run Silent, Run Deep does,
Yeah.
which again is meant to be very straight and serious and earnest. And I'm just a bit like, oh. So, the rating and then the ranking.
Okay.
Out of 10.
Yeah.
Where are we going with this, Sam?
I think the thing that's tricky about this album is there's two things about this album for me, right? Is for all my criticism, very little of it is actively bad, right? It's not a train wreck. It's not a hilarious misstep where you can laugh at the absurdity of what the band has done. It's not like Cold Lake or something. But instead, it's almost worse in that it just feels really phoned in, lacks a lot of heart and drive, and you can kind of just tell they're sort of not into it. For all the contemporary stuff they're saying around the time, it just feels really like they don't want to be there. Like recording it in a barn on Steve Harris's estate so that he doesn't have to make a huge effort to leave the house. Fundamentally, is kind of how it feels. It's just... Yeah, it feels like no one wants to be there. It's a bit of a big nothing.
And there's a real sense of, just for me, with everything, the music videos, the cover art, there's just a sense of that'll do.
And they're so nonplussed about Adrian leaving that they bring Anakin the day before they start recording. Like, there's no sense of urgency to anything here. And yeah, I mean, now that we've done this episode, I am never going to listen to this album again. I think it's probably a couple of tracks off it, sure, but never as a whole album again. So I think... even though it's not terrible, it is pretty dull. I'm probably going to go 5.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I agree with everything you said, so there's no point me saying it again. I wasn't going to be a million miles off of 5, which is pretty incredible when you think of we're coming off the back of 2 unanimous 10s for that.
Yeah.
Seven Son, the previous record. So I was going to go... You see, the thing is I know what's coming. Again, not the next album, Fear of the Dark. Again, no spoilers, but I have some thoughts about that record. And let's leave it there. But in latter albums, I think I need a bit of room to go down again.
Sure.
And actually... if this album had been released by a different generic heavy metal band, I'm just trying to think of any generic heavy metal also, if this was like a Tigers of Pantang album or something. Yeah, if this was a Dokken album, I'd be like, oh, this is quite good. This is all right,
Sorry, Dokken.
Sorry, Dokken, yeah. Yeah, Dokken are all right. That's an odd one.
Yeah, sure. I know. They just came to mind, but I have no beef with Dokken.
So I'm going to go for 5.5, 5.5.
Okay.
I'm going to give it that extra half point. So
our sort of consolidated average score is 5.25.
5.25. Because we should say this is the end of the season, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
As is the established format, 4 albums a season, and then an unspecified period of time off.
Yes.
But
between those 4 albums, we've had quite a lot of weird bonus episodes this time round.
Yeah.
So, you've got your pound of flesh out of us, listeners.
Just want to hope that Iron Maiden release another stamp collection. That's all I'm saying. Then they'll get us back for a bonus episode. But we will be back, like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
We will. And we're going to... I guess the next season, we cover quite an interesting 4 albums. We go from Fear of the Dark to the Blaze Bayley era... back to Bruce.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to be quite an exciting period.
You say this, you haven't listened to the X Factor yet.
Okay, right. But just in terms of like the dramatics of the band, I guess.
Yes, yeah, it is. It is a very interesting episode. I've already been delving into various YouTube wormholes of Iron Maiden and MTV in the 90s, and you think, wow, yeah, interesting time for metal.
Yeah, definitely. But before we get ahead of ourselves, should we look at the average scores per album?
Yeah, go on. Yes, is this the, end of season 2 definitive rundown of all the 8 albums we've looked at so far?
So at album 8, with a combined score from us of 5.25 out of 10, is No Prayer for the Dying. I'm sure no one's surprised.
It's quite a big drop from the next. There's a big drop between 7 and 8, isn't there?
Well, so
it gets quite tight at the top. But
yeah, position 7 is Killers, where we've got an average rating of 7. Then next we have Peace of Mind, average rating of 8.
I know there's our scores, and my score, that sounds incredibly low, doesn't it? Like Peace of Mind is like a third from the bottom. But
well, it's because things grow so much.
Well, yeah, it's all so good, isn't it, really, once you get to this point.
So in 5th, we have Iron Maiden at 8.25.
That's a scandal, but
at
go on.
4th, we have Somewhere in Time at 8.75. We really got into our decimals here.
Yeah.
In 3rd, we have Power Slave at 8.8.
Nice.
2nd is Number of the Beast at 9.25.
Oh, just see, I would put Power Slave higher, but there we go.
Yeah, well, that's how averages work. And then Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, a clear 10.
Yes. Come on. What an interesting era. Other than this episode, a brilliant era in the band's discography.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say we've covered all of the band's classic albums now.
Ooh.
Well, classic in the sense of when you think of Iron Maiden, no one really, as much as Iron Maiden fans will think of, say, maybe Brave New World or Dance of Death.
Well, that's all right.
They're not classic in the lexicon of metal.
No, that's fair. Right. Yeah.
So we have covered the essential staples of the Maiden chronology at this point.
But this is where it gets interesting.
But I mean, we've kind of talked about how the last decade has been almost like a rabbit run of just a year of record album in Compass Point Studios, go on tour for several months, nearly burn out, record album in Compass Point Studios, go on tour for several months, nearly burn out, over and over and over again. That's all started to change. And obviously the band kind of goes through a tumultuous period throughout the 90s.
Yeah, it really does. It's a decade of...
Be interesting.
And you'll be pleased to know at the start of next season, we're back in Steve's barn for Fear of the Dark.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it the Stones mobile studio again?
No, he's built a proper studio. But it's in his barn.
Well, at least he's made an actual studio this time, rather than using some 70s equipment in the back of a van.
So until then, follow us on X, as everyone's calling it these days.
I think everyone still calls it Twitter, to be honest.
At MaidenPod on Twitter, X, whatever you want.
Also, there'll be a delay before this episode goes live after recording it, so maybe X will not exist by that point.
I mean, that is literally our only social media outlet, Sam. So.
Yeah, maybe we should make a Facebook page.
Maybe.
Or a Meta page.
Yeah, or I don't know what a Discord is, but... A Telegram?
We set up like a...
Are we on the dark web?
A series of homing pigeons carrying pictures of cuttings from Kerrang.
Yeah. I mean, for the time being, it's X. So at MaidenPod on X, please send us your... particularly No Prayers for the Dying related Maiden swag.
Yeah, would love to see some of the vinyls of Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. That'd be cool.
I'll put my 7-inch up there. Vinyl.
Important clarification.
And
all right, I think that's the end of the season.
That's a good place
Go
to
home.
call it. Sure.